Welcome to the second episode of Change That Matters. Based on where we are in our life, we are probably thinking which school I should attend. What should I study for my undergrad or master's or PhD? Should I become a musician or a sportsman? Should I be a software engineer or a financial analyst? We are privileged to even be in such dilemmas. As we are thinking this, people in some of the marginalized communities in the world are thinking of ways to feed their children. Some of them are working 4 5 hours a day to get a basic education, and some of them are seeing their family members die of basic treatable health complications. Even when everything is stacked against them, there are brave children, adults, in marginalized communities who, through their dedication, hard work, and mental strength, achieve their dream, a dream to be educated, a dream to support their family, and a dream to uplift other members of their community. They are the unsung heroes of our society. Our guest for today is one of the unsung heroes, who is an example of hope, optimism, and perseverance for all of us. Let us welcome our guest for today, Bishwas Chepang. So, welcome to the show, Bishwas. So, how is it going with pandemic and everything?
Hi, Sandeep. Things are going well. Things are going back to normal these days. And yeah, we're practicing adaptive management. So go with the flow.
Mhm.
And yes, but again, the third variant, Omicron, is attacking everyone now. Let's see
Yeah,
how it goes. But things are good these days.
yeah, that's really nice to hear that things are getting better. So, to start the show, we'd love to hear about your background and then your professional career, professional goals. We'd love to hear about that.
Okay, warm greetings to everyone who is listening to this podcast. This is second podcast by Sandeep Acharya.
Mhm.
My name is Bishwas Chepang, and I come from Nepal. I come from Chepang community, which is one of the indigenous background and one of the marginalized communities in Nepal. Um, Academic wise, I have completed my master's in advanced development in social work from University of Lincoln, UK. It was funded by Erasmus Mundus scholarship program in 2018. And I'm currently working as environment and social safeguard specialist in WWF Nepal. Thank you.
Yeah, so you said like Chepan community is one of the indigenous marginalized community. How was it growing up in Chepan community? How was the schooling, livelihood, and like how did you make a transition to your career in social work? Could you please elaborate on that?
Thank you for giving this opportunity for me to give explore more on this, where I came from, my personal side of stories, and what I'm doing on this side in the community. He, to elaborate again on the community that I belong, it falls under the 59 categories of indigenous communities identified by government of Nepal. So this falls under the uh, highly marginalized community in Nepal, and it falls under very low socioeconomic uh, strata based on different indicators such as education, access to health, access to basic infrastructures, and access to roadways, access to electricity, and so on. So the community is still lagging behind in several cases. For example, just to give one fact, like the community has literacy rate of 23% according to 2011 data.
Yeah, so like the last time I checked, I think the literacy rate of Nepal is 69 point some percent is based on UN data in 2020. So it seems like the literacy rate in Chepang community is three times lower than the national average. What do you think is the reason for that? Is it lack of attention from the government? Being a part of that community, how do you explain this?
There are both the ways that needs to be taken into considerations for this region, for uh, less literacy rate, because the community people also needs to be more outward to get into the education sector, and the government also needs to take some initiative to support these backward communities. For example, the community, the term Chiobang means like, the meaning of the Chiobang is it's people residing in the hills, top of the hills. So when they live in the top of the hills, then they have very less access to good transport, good infrastructures. So they can't go to good schools. And there are very basic schools like up to grade 5, provided by the government of Nepal. So they don't have any opportunity to study or pursue their education after grade 5. Some of them even repeats in on grade 5, and some of them ends up in child marriage and working as a labor in restaurants and all. So there will other issues will come is along with these literacy rates. So but the government also needs to take some initiative on reaching out to these unreached area and increasing the literacy rate or education uh, uh, facilities to these communities.
So you grew up in that community, and as you mentioned, the education infrastructures are not good, and it's even hard for people to meet their basic needs. So having been grown in that community, like how did you get yourself um, to get the right opportunities and make all the way here? And you did masters from University of Lincoln in UK. So how did you make that transition right from the childhood to this point?
Mhm. Unfortunately, I grew up in a single parent family. Like when I was at the age of 5, my mom left away because there was a tussle between my mom and dad, and they had to separate. So that was unfortunate moment. And but fortunately, I was selected to study in one of the Chepang school, where only Chepang community people were allowed to study, or they were given free education, free residence, and free clothing and everything. So that was how I started my education. I started from grade 1 to 3. And then luckily again, I was selected to study in one of the national schools of Nepal, National School of Nepal, Burangode School, located in Kathmandu. So that's how I began my uh, leap towards education. And after I completed my advanced level, I studied bachelor's in social work, and finally I got my Erasmus Mundus scholarship program in 2016 through European Union scholarship program, and I completed my master's in advanced development in social work. So that's how the transition to education uh, in my life occurred.
Yeah, so as you grew up and you got an opportunity to study in Chepang school, then Branconde school, then you went to UK to study social work. But I also know that you are very actively involved in a lot of social work yourself, and you are doing a lot of work to help members of Chepang community get educated, get more aware about different problems in the society. So could you please elaborate on that? What are you doing for the community and other social works you are involved in?
Thank you for your interest to know more on what I'm working. Uh, Actually, I know where I come from. I know my background. I know my roots. So I always believe in giving back to society. I always feel of contributing or giving something that I can from to the society. Although I'm not economically or financially stable in current stage, I'm working as an intermediary.
Mhm.
Intermediary, which we call dalal in Nepali, but it's a good way
To
in
put it
intermediary
yeah.
in English. So I work as a bridge between the community and the organizations, either community-based organizations or non-governmental organizations or any other individual donors or sponsor or individual willing supporters. So I've been working as a bridge. I connect them. I reach out to these organizations, people, or other corporate houses, and share my story about the community where I come from, and I tell the reality how it is, and I just connect. Like I just ask for possible supports from on this area that they're working. So I've been trying to support my community in various ways, either in education or health or access to energy and so on. So there are different projects or small projects that I'm working.
So, like, do you want to tell us about some of your one or two of your projects so that our audience can hear about it and possibly get inspired to help other people in need in our society?
Yeah. Actually, I was tired of donation based programs, because like even I used to do like clothes donation, donating foods, donating relief materials,
Mm-hmm.
donating like packets of biscuits and rice and all those. I was tired of that, and I thought of making them independent, or like the community people needs to take their own initiative to stand on their own feet, or to be independent of any other organizations or support or sponsors. That's how I thought, and I thought of developing some livestock entrepreneurship programs, supporting community to grow the livestock on their own and to sell it in the market, and at least gain some earnings, so that they can spend those few pennies in their copies, pencils, or stationery for their children,
Mm-hmm.
or they can at least buy few good meals in their family, so that at least family will be happy, or at least it can bring some happiness in the family. So that's how I thought, and I started like poultry farming, I started pig farming, and even started retail shop projects um, that was supported by SAPES North America. And
Oh, wow.
I started these small projects so that the community people would gain.
So, have you heard back from some of the people you helped, and have you heard their stories and how they have made progression from not having a stable lifestyle, and they made it through after they received the support that you initiated?
Yeah, these are very small projects, but I was not expecting very dramatic change in their lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
But like few things that was visible was like they grew up chicken, or they grew up those pigs, and they could sell it in the market. Like they could buy get some chunk of money, and they had at least way some areas to spend. And because actually there is no any other source of earning in the community, because everyone is dependent on agriculture. They grow their food, they eat and they consume, and that's finished. So
Mm-hmm.
they're not exposed to outside world, like about those markets, shoppings and all those things. That's why. But about these small projects, how it contributed in their life or in their family is it gave it gave them earning. Even few earnings help them to uh, solve their small issues about the children's stationaries, or even clothing, or having a good meal. So that was basic change, or basic fulfillment that I saw through these small projects.
So, have you always been like, even when you grew up in Chepang community, did you have a mindset that I'm gonna do well in my life, come back here and help these people? Or over time you got extra motivation to pursue social work and help the community? So, at what point in life you put yourself completely out there to help the community?
After I completed my A level course in Burangad school, then there was the time that everything came into my mind, because when I just came out of residential school after grade
Mhm.
after A level, then like I had to think of everything. Like I started thinking of my community, because I knew where I came from, and I knew my roots, as I told you in the beginning as well. And the community was still struggling. And
Mhm.
so I always think of giving or contributing something to society. So that, and few things that pop up in my mind is like how we can support is only through agriculture, because there is no other infrastructure that we can build on, so that the community people, large number of community people would gain benefit. But it was only through basic things that is locally available, through local people engagement, that how we could engage those community and help them, support them, or benefit themselves.
Yeah, so you grew up in Chitwan, you say top of the hill in Chitwan, and you mentioned that that community is pretty isolated. And one interesting thing I found when I was reading some of your articles is that you mentioned that some of the people in the Chepang community do not even have citizenship of Nepal. Now, obviously, that means they don't have access to government benefits. and they can't officially buy or sell land, they can't do so many official things. And now we are living in a time where the world has really advanced, and even Nepal is making strides in various ways. Like, how do you think that issue particularly can be resolved, or why do you think still like so many people don't have citizenship?
Yes, thank you for pinpointing this again. Yes, the Nepal is trying to transition from least developing country to developing country, or middle developing country, something like that. But the community people in the unreached area are still struggling to get citizenships. Yes, I'm not sure about the exact data now, but there was like around 60% of people had no citizenship. Like it was way before. Now I'm not sure about the now facts now. This could be due to, yes, the geographical difficulty where people can't reach, um, and the access to technology is even like that's impossible, and they do not have any access to informations as well. But gradually it's changing, because the mobile penetration data in Nepal is high, but I'm still skeptical about the data, because even like I have three phones. That means like I don't know how did they calculate all those mobile penetration data. And yes, it has reached, the mobile penetration has reached in Japan community as well, so that they have some access to information through Android phones, or when they use data, all the social
Mhm.
medias. Now they have access to all those informations, and they are aware of the fact that they need to get citizenship and all those things. But some of the technical challenge in getting those citizenship cards and for these community people is like, uh, they need to disclose all like three generations details while getting citizenship. That means like I need to show my father, grandfather, and grandfather's father, something, all those details. When you need to show those details, like even those grandfathers did not have citizenship cards. So now the challenge comes in. when they when these details are not here, then the government authority won't support, like they won't approve these process, and like, okay, you can't get citizenship. This could be one reason as well. And uh, going to those areas, although like there are recent initiatives like mobile citizenship distribution camps, and this has supported these community people. Even like, so it has these mobile camps still needs to be increased to all those unreached areas. That's how it could help the community. I think that should be best way for now.
So it's very interesting that you brought up mobile phones, and because we live in this world where it's with all of us, and our viewers will be watching this can watch this because they have mobiles, laptops, they can open YouTube and stream this. Now you brought up a whole different side of the story where some of the peoples don't even have access to this technology. Do you think if mobile usage gets more wide, and if the technology gets more spread out, do you think there will be more educated people in the Japan community? And do you think government can play any role, or citizens of the country can play any role in facilitating that in marginalized communities?
Now that's a tricky and difficult question. Yes, access to technologies, access to these mobile phone devices will increase awareness. It will increase even consciousness as well, because like when I have Android devices, when I am able to use those datas and use those social medias and all those news, online news and all those things, then that gives me some news headings about like what's going on in the current state, and about the facilities, about the upcoming initiatives of rural municipalities in the government level. And and what are the provisions, are the social benefits that these community people can benefit. So these informations will all be floating around, but those communities who do not have access to these phones and technologies won't be able to get this information. But as these penetration of mobile phones and all these informations are increasing, so yes, this is how we could increase awareness gradually. Being aware would also contribute to um, getting into education sector as well. For example, like to read those details, to read those news, to understand those news as well, they need to be educated. So yeah, this will like indirectly push people to be educated as well. I think that's how I can relate.
So based on what you are explaining in terms of what you are doing, you are acting like an intermediary to between the NGOs, INGOs, and Chepang community, and you are trying to create a pipeline where like Chepang community receives help from these organizations willing to help marginalized communities. Do you have future plans in terms of how you want to contribute to the community, or you go with the flow, you just keep giving your best in helping the community, or do you have specific plans in regard to that?
um, yes, I will continue all these initiatives, but what I did previously was like based on more short term, more of a voluntary type. And what I used to do was on my free times and based on my network and all. Now I have structured organization, like I have established a non-profit company called Institute for Indigenous Affairs and Development. We have a team of 6 members, and we're currently working on um, all the aspects of indigenous community, but we are currently focusing on Chepang community. So what I have planned for upcoming days is I wanted to make one of the comprehensive model of supporting community, to make them sustainable, independent, and support in all other means. Like for example, I wanted to build up a social space for Chepang community where people can come, they can learn, we can and they can learn, they can exchange informations, even uh, even they can also get some access to informations about their community itself, because that's what I have planned for. Like I'm planning for one of that comprehensive model where I'm planning to build a resource center. Like all the information about Japan community will be
Mhm,
available in that center. I'm planning to gather all those audio, video, and
mhm,
all those storybooks, all the novels about or anything about the community. And I'm also planning to build up a uh, space where researchers, anthropologists, and even the academicians can go and research about the community. They can stay, they can uh, engage with the community members, they can acculture their cultures in the community people itself. So that's how I'm planning it, so that even the local people would uh, get exposed to outside people. They can interact, they can know, they can understand the outside world's context. And even the researcher anthropologist can also gain and basic understanding about the community. So that's how I have planned for, like that will be more integrative model, and we'll try to engage all the local people, mothers group, youth clubs, and all of these, so that they can get benefit from that.
so one thing I noticed is that literacy rate of Chepang community is 23%, which is pretty low compared to the national average, more than 3 times. But even saddening is that the literacy rate of female was less than 5% based on 2012 data that published by Central Bureau of Statistics. So, being a part of that community, do you have what's your take on that?
I was not aware of the fact about that women's literacy rate. Thank you for bringing out that. Now I'm aware. But now from this year, we will have new data and we'll see how it has increased. And for me, education is only the weapon to change the world, as said by
Mhm,
Nelson Mandela, because
mhm,
education gives you opportunity for social mobility. It gives you opportunity to know more about the outer world as well,
mhm.
and you will get opportunity to get exposed to outside world as well. And just to give my case as well, because it's all because of education that I grew up, that I got exposed to. And after I'm educated, if after I reached to certain level, then I got other positions to work in my professional career as well. So for me, education is only the means, because for people like us, for community people who belong to these marginalized backward community, who have very less access to political parties, and very political bureaucrats, and who have very less the community people who have very less income, or we where we can't uh, what do we call give corruption or any other things. So it's very difficult to get job or get access to other job markets as well. So for us, education is only the means, because if I'm qualified, if I'm educated, I will have access to other job opportunity as well, where I can apply, I can compete with other people as well. So this would be only the means, and we need to focus on education for these community people as well.
So, does your organization have any specific plans to help women in a specific? Because the literacy rate for women seems to be much lower than that for male in Japan community.
Currently, we're running one child, one sponsor program, one Chepang child, one sponsorship program, and that's like investing $150 a year for a child to study in the school that I studied in, my grade 1 to 3. So it's free, but all some of the academic things or the registration process, administration process needs to be done. That's why we need to give few amount to school as well, and the other amount, chunk of amount, goes to the child for dress, shoes and sweaters and all of those things. We started this project because after grade 5 there is no place to study for the people living in the hills, because they can't rent a room in city area. They can't pay for foods as well, because the family is still struggling in mid hills, and they can't come into city area and to get all those education services after grade 5. So what I thought was like, uh, to reduce these issues, I thought of bringing those childrens who completed grade 5 to that school where I studied until the school, and they'll continue from grade 6, and they will complete after up to higher education, high schools. That should be a good means. That's how I started, and we're currently we have around 10 students studying under this sponsorship program, and they are doing good. And we wanted to do this because this was one way to reduce child marriage in Chepang community, because the child marriage rate is also very high in Chepang
Mhm.
community. So if I take those children from grade 5 to continue their study in grade 6 in one of the school in city area, then they can continue up to high school. So at least it would contribute. It contributed in reducing to child marriages. So these are some of the small projects that we are carrying out as well, because as I told you, that education is only the means for the people belonging to these communities.
So you mentioned those projects as small, but they are not really small, because even if you are able to like you are saying, there are 10 students already under this program, and you are helping them build their future, so it's clearly not small. And in this show, like
Actually, there were 14 and there were dropouts as well. And there will be
uh,
challenges.
so what was the reason for them dropping out? Like, was it family reason, or they just felt like they didn't want to study?
Some of them had difficulty in coping up with the academic pressures as well. Yes, as you mentioned, even like family calls those children to support them in agriculture work back home, because, oh child, you don't need to study. Oh, what will you do after studying? Because there are lots of children like who are unemployed after studying as well. So I think you need to come and support me in agriculture or in my field or in my farm. So that's how parents also pressurizes them, and that could be also the reason for a dropout. And the amount that we're giving is also very minimal, so I don't think it's giving making them massive uh, impact in their education support. I think we might need to increase on this support scheme as well, because the $150 for a year is like a very less amount for them as well. That could also be the reason, but I don't know how that directly relates. But or there
So
could be other external factors as well.
so if people are interested to participate in a program and willing to help the kids in Japan community, uh, like how can they navigate that process?
We can share you the details about our organizations and how we are working. And if you like those modality of support, then then you can reach out to us. But I think we can share those descriptions in this podcast as well.
Yeah, yeah, I think that would be great. Because I do know from my experience, at least, like I see a lot of people here where I'm studying. They want to make some small contribution to the society every now and then, and if that goes to children in Chepang community, I think that would be a big work done. The growth that someone can have because of education is exponential, and not only they will have the growth, but they will educate other people, and so on and on. So, and I really appreciate that you're carrying this work out with that vision. I think it will really
Yeah,
help a
I can
community.
even give you my example. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm educated in my family or entire community, like of 70,000. I'm one of the educated, and I'm only the one with the international degree holder in the entire community of 70,000
Mm-hmm.
people. Uh, just to give about my specific society where I live in, my family, about my family, like I'm educated in my family. So I support my family now because I have now good earning. I can support my family. And when other people, my nearby neighbors see this, like they also says that, okay, the only way is to get the children to schools, and we need to support them to go to school, and everyone is forcing because like I think that's something like copycat as well, are becoming a role model as well, and people are
Yeah.
copying now. Okay, and they're even like everyone asked me like, please take my children to that school, take my children to get educations. And when I go back home during festival seasons, and there are lots of them, people come and talk with me, and they want their children to get educations in good places so that they can also even the family can get enlightened, or get other basic support after the child is educated, or they get a good job and something like that. So that's how it's
S-
going. I think that's good.
So you mentioned about financial hardships those children might have coming to a different city for education, right? So when you came to Kathmandu for the first time from top of the hill in Chitwan, clearly you didn't have access to basic infrastructures there. So how did you feel when you first came to Kathmandu, and did you have any financial hardship navigating through school life? Then you did your bachelor in Nepal. So did that occur to you?
Yeah, the best part was I received scholarship from Pestology Overseas Children Trust
Mhm.
POCT in Budanilkanda School. So uh, I did not have to pay any amount, but even if my parents was asked to pay like uh, let's say $5 a month, they couldn't pay it. Like they can't pay $5 per month for my education because they do not have any source of earning, and they're all dependent on subsistence agriculture. Like they won't have enough food for themselves even for a year. So it's impossible for us for them to educate their child or children in good schools. So I was fortunate to receive that scholarship, so I did not have to pay anything, and it was all residential. So it was Burangade school is a residential school in Nepal. So we all had to stay, and eating and clothing, fooding, lodging, and everything was all covered by those scholarships. So I had no issues. But however, having less money or having no money, where some of the friends have some few amount, good amount, then myself was like that was challenging because friends used to get some good foods and good other things, good clothing materials, but I had to get limited to everything that I was given by scholarship.
Yeah. So after you graduated from Budanil content, did you have difficulty getting into bachelor because of your financial situation, or were there plenty of scholarship opportunities?
Yes, now you're coming up to my more personal stories. Yes, there were lots of challenges after I completed my A level because that's how I jumped into the market. Because after you, because all those residential schooling was all limited to those inside schooling, like everything was bigger world inside the school. But after I completed my A level, then the real world began.
Yeah.
And because like I had to look, I have to pay rent on my own. I had to buy food for my own, And
Mhm.
transport, work, communicate, everything, all the cost had to be bear on my own. So then the challenge began, where because I was just a high school graduate and I had nothing. So that's how the problem got bigger. But then I started exploring like who is supporting Chepang community, which organizations are supporting community, Chepang communities. So I started googling. I started to see in Facebook like who are supporting Chepang people, Chepang youths, and all those things. And then when I started seeing this, I found one organization named Underprivileged Children's Educational Program located in Sanatimi, Bhaktapur, and that's how I got enrolled in that organization. I studied in the morning
Mhm.
and then I work in the afternoon. So that's, and I had a place to stay in that organization itself. So that's how I started. And even to pay for all those dress and coat, pant, and all those other books and materials, stationery materials, I would not have enough money. So I requested one Miteri Foundation. That's a organization completely supporting to Chepang community, and they funded me to study, pursue my bachelor's degree. So that's how I started. Like they supported in basic logistic, and I had a place to stay, and I had a place to study as well. So all three things got connected, and I was able to get pursue my educations for my undergraduate degree as well.
So wow, like your story is really inspiring. Despite all the hardships you have faced yourself at every stage of life, what you are doing to uplift the life standards and educational infrastructures in Chepang community is impressive, and I think there's a lot our viewers can learn from this. So do you have any message uh, for Nepali citizens and citizens of the world about what can be done to support marginalized community so that they can be more independent and they can have a sustainable model of livelihood?
Thousands of miles begins with a single step. So uh, we can't change the entire world. So everything that we can do is like start from your own
Mhm.
family, or start from your own community. So that's how I'm doing. And I believe in education. Education is the only means to change. Although like some of the big people who have lots of money have different stories, but for us, like education is only way to bring change or social mobility or other access to services. So I think we need to focus on education only, and
Mhm.
we're working on ground grassroots level in supporting our community, supporting these one of the indigenous community background backward among the entire marginalized community itself as well. You can Google or you can see in YouTube as well if you want to find out more information about the community. If you want to mm, like fact finding, if you feel that I'm just lying, yes,
Yeah.
and if you want to support, you can visit our organization's website. You can write an email to us how we can work together, how different universities can together with these community rural camps where the university people can come to the community. They can immerse in the community and find out how we can bring some sustainable model in the community itself, because we can't propose a development model in the community. The all those models needs to come up within the community, from the community, through our facilitation. So that's how we can also collaborate with academic institutions uh, on way forward, so that this would at least support contribute to the community people in long run.
Yeah, so you talked about small steps, and the whole motivation behind the show is the same. It's taking those small steps so that you end up having a large impact in days to come. So this was a really inspiring story from you. Thank you so much for coming to our show. I really appreciate your time. I know you are involved in a lot of things, and despite that, you are here with us. And I think many of the viewers will really, really appreciate what you are doing. And we hope many Japan kids will be educated.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for inviting me in this change that matters. Thank you so much.